All right. Hey, everybody. Can't quite see familiar faces here, but maybe some of you were at our meetup last night. DappCon 2023. It's good to be back. It's crazy how fast a year goes. This is a talk that's kind of meant to just get the conversation started around wallets and monetization. Probably most of us still use MetaMask. I work at Ultimate, which is a mobile wallet. The question is really, like the title says, can we make a wallet zero fee and still monetize it fairly without centralizing Ethereum? A bit about me. I'm Max Sherwood. I guess in 3 words, I would describe myself as an enthusiast, an analyst, and a validator as well. I'm research and growth at Ultimate, and I also co-founded a validator company last year called H2O Nodes. So let's get straight into it. Where are we today in terms of like DEX versus SEX trading? So DEX trading makes up about 15% of the crypto trading volume. The other 85% obviously being centralized exchanges. Obviously these are rookie numbers, right? We want to pump those numbers up. Ideally, we would flip the amount of volume that decentralized exchanges are doing and have there be more than even the centralized exchanges are doing. But maybe you say, okay, well, I don't really, trade in DeFi. I don't really, trade shitcoins. I don't really care. Well, I have news for you. If you're staking your ETH, you should care because thanks to MEV Boost and the new paradigm that we live in now, where validators are collecting MEV, anytime there's a big spike in DEX trading or just DeFi activity generally, we see a big spike in the staking APY. And here's a couple examples of that. Sure, it might only last a day or two, but I think you get the idea here. We should all want more DEX activity as holders and stakers of ETH. So how do we get more DEX activity, more users, more volume onto DEXs off of centralized exchanges? Probably not with antiquated UIs. No hate to Curve, of course, but I think they almost did this tongue-in-cheek because it looks pretty terrible. At Ultimate, we're fully convinced that we need to move on to mobile. This is already where TradFi has gone. Most of us probably do a lot of our online banking on mobile, and there's no reason why we should all still be on our PCs on web extensions. I saw people in line to collect merch a couple days ago with their laptops, having their wallets open. So we're still a little behind, perhaps, in crypto. So when I started Ultimate, I thought, okay, well, a wallet is just taking data from the blockchain. It's just interacting with the blockchain. It shouldn't be too hard to build a wallet, right? Yes and no. Building a great wallet takes a great team and some APIs, which are not cheap. So if you load into a new wallet and let's say you import a seed phrase and you instantly see portfolio chart over the last 3 months, like that's a lot of data, right? You're taking a lot of token balances, historical balances, even looking at your transactions. You need to parse through transactions. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the back end, I guess is what I'm saying, and that needs to be built by some very skilled engineers who typically like to be paid quite a nice salary. And the APIs as well need to be fast and reliable, and those are not cheap either. So building a great wallet does cost money, and it begs the question, how should a wallet monetize, right? Because nothing is for free. So let's talk about MetaMask. Of course, many of you know, but actually let's see a raise of hands, like who has actually used the built-in swap function inside of MetaMask before? Okay. 1, 3, 5, some people, okay. A lot of people don't even know this exists, especially the more advanced people amongst us, but they do have a built-in swap function. They aggregate liquidity from multiple sources and try to give you the best price. And what do they do then? They slap a 0.875% fee onto your order, which is probably going to ruin your price. And yet, they've made somewhere between $200 and $400 million. So that's like the top right is the total revenue. I've seen estimates higher than that as well. And the figure, the $58 million, is the amount of volume they did last week when I put these slides together. So definitely a lot of volume going through MetaMask, and they've made a lot of money. You can see in the last bull market, many weeks they were doing over $2 million in revenue per week. So pretty impressive. But from a user's point of view, are we really going to trade on wallets that use 0.875% as the fee? Probably not. If anything, that's a reason not to use a wallet, right? Because we can go directly to a DEX front end, we can connect directly with a DEX, and we don't have to pay an extra fee. So I would say that added fees are a reason not to use a wallet, and if we want to increase adoption and users and DEX trading volume, we actually need to remove hurdles from DeFi trading, right? If we think about what Robinhood did in the US with TradFi brokerage, they removed all the fees. They made it possible on your phone, super easy, so they kind of removed all the hurdles. So the question was not, why should I trade on Robinhood? The question became, why shouldn't I trade on Robinhood? And I think we need to do the same thing here. So Ultimate right now has no fees on swaps. That begs the question, how can you monetize with zero fees? So there's a few kind of ideas out there, subscriptions, so a monthly subscription. Coinbase does this with their centralized exchange. I don't remember if it's like 20 or 30 bucks a month, but they basically cancel out all your trading fees if you subscribe to this service. You could also do tipping, where users could add a tip to their transaction, which has worked for some companies in the past. I'm not really a fan of either of those, to be honest. But the last 2 points on here is kind of where we're going to go, and is also more interesting for the Ethereum community, is talking about payment for order flow or MEV rebates. So this is a picture I took last year downstairs. That's Stefan from Flashbots, or at least he was from Flashbots back then. Now he's doing frontier research. And this is the MEV supply chain, right? Crazy how fast stuff changes in a year. This felt new back then. We were mostly talking about proposer-builder separation, of course, which is kind of the latter half of the MEV supply chain. But today I'm interested in talking about the front half, which is users and wallets. So let's talk about order flow auctions, which sit kind of in the middle here. So order flow auctions, there's a few types out there. So for example, an RFQ, a request for quote, you might see this in like 0x API, where there's market makers who are giving you quotes or giving the user quotes, and the lowest one will obviously win. So this is for like price discovery on swaps. There's also exclusive batch auctions, which is more like CowSwap, for example, which you'll be familiar with. And that's more for swap execution. So that sits in the middle of this MEV supply chain, and there's bidders obviously trying to fill this bid. So Stefan wrote a piece in March, I think, of this year called the Order Flow Auction Design Space. And if you'll excuse me for reading off the slide, Stefan wrote, "Order flow auctions promise to return users the value they create via their orders. We believe this year will be the year of order flow auctions, and we expect significant competition happening between order flow auction designs and their implementations in the next 6 months." So that's all fine and well, but actually it's still quite early for order flow auctions and also payment for order flow. I'm going to make the case that in-wallet swaps still play a very minor role in DEX order flow, because most DEX volume is still coming from DEX front ends and APIs directly, not from wallets integrated swap features. And as such, we haven't really seen the effects of payment for order flow. So let's go back to MetaMask. I said they did around about 50 million in volume last week. So almost half of it came from Uniswap, and almost half of it came from 0x API. I'm talking about the liquidity, of course. So if you consider the fact that the entire DEX space does about $10 billion per week in DEX volume, you'll see that about 0.5% of the DEX volume today is coming from MetaMask swap functions. So even though $50 million a week is quite a lot, it's just scraping the surface of total DEX volume. So this is really just me saying that MetaMask hasn't completely taken over the DEX trading landscape with their swap function. And by the way, it's still early days for aggregators too. So only about 20% of DEX volume comes through aggregators. And it doesn't seem to be trending up at all. So yeah, this is a 2-year chart, so it really hasn't changed in 2 years. I was quite surprised when I saw this. And by the way, from 0x, the aggregator, only about 5% of their volume comes from RFQ, so RFQ is also not widely used today. So it's still early days. yeah, basically my point is just that people are still connecting directly with DEXs on the front ends, on the APIs, and trading directly. They're not really doing it through aggregators. They're not really doing it through wallets, at least not yet. So it's still early days. But let's think about the future, right? Because that's what we do here is we think about opportunities and challenges for the future. So let's imagine there is a wallet that's completely dominating the DEX trading landscape and creating a ton of order flow through a built-in swap function. Would that create centralization for Ethereum if they're engaging in payment for order flow? I think we can all agree that for a wallet to succeed, it should profit with its users and not from its users. That seems pretty straightforward. But Quintus from Flashbots wrote 2 pieces in September of last year about order flow auctions and centralization. The first one was called A Warning, so clearly he's got something on his mind. So it's useful to think about these things in terms of utopia and dystopia, right, which is something we do quite a lot in the MEV space. I think we all know that decentralization is good for Ethereum, right? Especially on the block building side, we want open, diverse, competitive market for block builders. And centralization is bad for Ethereum, so we don't want a domination of large block builders due to exclusive order flow. So what would this look like? By the way, this chart, here's a picture I took of Stefan last year down in the boat stage, which is sadly not available this year, but it's good to be up here. So yeah, this chart that he presented last year, if we start at the top, if a block builder is getting exclusive private order flow from, let's say, a wallet, they're going to be able to build higher value blocks because they have more transactions to pick and choose from. They're going to consistently win block building competitions because their blocks are higher value, which is in turn going to justify the exclusivity agreements that they have with the wallets because they can say, hey, look, we're building most of the blocks. Our blocks are the highest value. So this is kind of how a dystopia flywheel could start. So yeah, sorry to pick on MetaMask and Consensus, but nothing against MetaMask or Consensus. But let's just imagine for a second that MetaMask and Consensus did like vertically integrate, or in this example, horizontally integrate across the MEV supply chain. So starting from the left with the wallet, obviously MetaMask plugs into Infura RPC. But let's imagine that Consensus wanted to launch a block builder, right? They do have a validator infrastructure product currently. Let's say they also had a validator, a block proposer. So really, as a user, if you were plugged into this stack, you'd be using MetaMask, and your orders would be being batched together into blocks built by Consensus and proposed by Consensus. So it kind of begs the question: is this even DeFi anymore? Right? Is this even DEX trading when pretty much every step of the process is being administrated by the same party, right? So. Again, nothing against MetaMask, but this is just to kind of get your brain going. So what's going to happen next? Auction models are going to be tested. Wallets are going to launch and compete for market share. We've already seen tons of wallets launching. So 1inch and Uniswap, interestingly, announced wallets, I think, this year, fairly recently. So 1inch is obviously an aggregator. Uniswap's obviously a DEX. How do we feel about that? I don't know. It's up to you to say. It kind of begs the question, who will win the wallet wars and who should win the wallet wars? So, there's kind of 2 strategies here, right? If a wallet captures more value, it can, spend more on marketing and a bigger team. So maybe this is like what MetaMask currently does with their high fee. But if wallets return more value to their users, either by cutting fees or giving them MEV rebates, they might get more users and more volume organically. So that might be interesting as well. But who should win the wallet wars? Should it be DEXs, aggregators? Should it be block builders if they're going to launch wallets themselves? What are the conflicts of interest here in terms of centralization? Am I making a big deal out of nothing, or is this something we should have our eye on? Definitely curious to hear your thoughts and your questions and your comments. So yeah, in summary, the entire ETH ecosystem benefits from increased DEX trading and increased DEX market share. DeFi needs fair markets and infrastructure. Unsophisticated traders need access to liquidity and protection from adversarial MEV. Wallets need a fair way to monetize their order flow. It costs money to build and develop a great wallet, and high fees on swaps are unacceptable, at least in my view. Order flow auctions should protect against builder centralization. So let's see what the future brings. Yeah, I kind of sped through that here, so we've still got some time, but thank you for your attention, and looking forward to your questions.
So much, Max. The floor is open for questions.
From your talk, it just gets me thinking, why doesn't MetaMask just take all the funds it's making, make its own nodes, and then try to just corner the block producing space, and then just say, hey, if you're using MetaMask, we won't front run you, but every transaction that doesn't come from MetaMask, we're going to just basically put some graphics card up and make sure we squeeze out every single little last piece of miner extracted value and give it back to our team.
Yeah, right. I mean, they could. That's pretty much what I'm talking about. I don't think they're going to do that, but if we do get to a place where there's a wallet that has huge success and is just generating a huge amount of order flow, I mean, in an extreme case, if we imagine like more than half of all DEX trading coming through a single wallet, there's tons of stuff that wallet could do, right? And I think creating a block builder would probably be the first thing if they wanted to vertically integrate. But I'm not a huge expert there, so.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from Max?
If we look at TradFi and how payment for order flow is being treated in Europe and in the US, with major concerns by regulators and policymakers over misdoing by, let's say, large financial institutions, how do you see, let's say, if crypto is now excited about payment for order flow today, aren't we running into the same problems tomorrow from a regulatory perspective? Yeah,
so here in Europe, as far as I'm aware, I think payment for order flow is quickly becoming illegal or is already illegal. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to engage in this in the future, either we have to make the argument to regulators that it's not the same as TradFi payment for order flow, because we do have a kind of a more sophisticated supply chain that we're talking about here. So, not everything, not every, payment for order flow-esque mechanism that wallets could use might fall under the same regulation. But here in Europe, yeah, it's definitely quickly becoming very unpopular.
Yeah, thanks for the talk. It was really excellent and very astutely presented. There's a lot of interesting work done at the moment on mempool encryption and attempts to blind transactions in general, just to really counter MEV, right, as I'm sure you're aware. Can you comment a little bit on how that would affect order flow auctions?
Sorry, what were the first two words?
How the mempool encryption, better mempool encryption would affect order flow auctions, and how general work against MEV extraction would affect order flow auctions in the value chain.
You're talking about privacy transactions? Yeah, I mean, I don't count myself as a huge expert on the technical side, but my understanding is the challenge is you don't want to, I mean, you need to make your intent known, obviously, because you want to trade and someone needs to fill the other side of that trade, but the moment you kind of publish the fact that you're going to the marketplace with the trade, you open yourself to potential front running, right? So I'm sure private transactions and encryptions, like you said, have a role to play here. The question is how do you stay private enough to protect yourself from front running, but not so private that you don't find anyone to trade with, right? So, but I'm not an expert.
Any other questions for this talk? In that case, thank you, Max.
Thanks, everybody.
Give it up for him.